For us in IFA, the International Fund of Agricultural Development, family farming is the core of our business. So that's really our identity, and that's why I would like really to emphasize how important this event is for us and this topic is for us. And for this, I would like to take you for a short journey, and I'm going to use the help of our smallholder lady to illustrate how she is the solution to a number of key development issues around the world. Our first, poverty alleviation. Why is family farm, smallholder farming important for poverty alleviation? Simply because it's a matter of numbers. There are 500 million family farms around the world. They represent 2 to 2.5 billion people. Most of them are poor. About 850 million of them are undernourished. The solution is that improving smallholder family agriculture is the closest proxy you can find to reducing global poverty and hunger. The two graphs below just show the numbers in terms of malnutrition and where the poverty is, which is illustrated in the points made above. But what is this agenda about really when we talk about poverty? Well, we believe that it's a lot about the power of voice and the power of scale. We insist a lot in working on institutions of the poor. I insist institutions of the poor and not for the poor. Meaning their own institutions. We want them to be able to come up and build their own voice, build their own scale, so that they are better capable of confronting either the public sector or the private sector in negotiating, in dealing with their own common resources. And we have different entry points for this. We could have, the so-called affinity-based groups, like savings and loans groups, mostly women's groups, the asset market-based cooperative groups, mostly dealing with commodities and value chain financing, or the resource-based groups, like water user associations, etc., in the irrigation sector. And what is that we think we have to do with them? We have two main agenda items. One is social empowerment, and the other one is economic empowerment. Social empowerment is mostly economic, about collective action. It's social capital and trust. Securing rights, access to services, respect and equality, dealing with ethnic minorities, women, etc. This is a critical agenda and very often overlooked by public policies and programs. The second part of the agenda is economic empowerment. It's really facilitating access to assets. It's not enough to give voice to people if nobody listens. So you have to give them income-generating activities, possibilities through asset creation, financial inclusion, and going to scale. Without scale, poor people will remain a mass of millions of people dispersed remotely, uneducated, and it's going to be very difficult to bring them mainstream. Scale is very important. So we need a combination of voice and scale to be able really to bring this so-called people sector, I would say, or producer sector on the front line and be able to negotiate for themselves. The second key that the smallholder lady holds is the key to the rural space. The message here is that cities cannot be sustainable, the countrysides are not sustainable. And smallholders are the key actors to address a situation where we confront an increasing inequality between rural and urban areas. We are confronted here with increased polarized societies. You have men living to the city, women and kids staying behind, divided family, undermining the social fabric of our society. And an increasing number of disgruntled youth looking for employment, going to city and just growing unrestful. Degraded environments, pockets of deep rural poverty, including in middle-income countries, no rural infrastructure, insufficient food supply. At the end of the day, who is going to feed the city if we think that the solution is going to be in cities? So the bottom line is that we would recommend for a sustainable urban-rural nexus instead. It is a fallacy to think that poverty will resolve itself simply by letting people go, and that we don't have to worry about rural areas really, because migration will happen anyway, and poverty will be resolved simply by sending people to cities. Cities can simply not, they're getting saturated. There is not enough of a pull factor from cities to be able to resolve these issues. And rural communities are not the analogy for remoteness, marginalities, and poverty. And also consumption market growing in the cities will have to be fed from somewhere, and that I know food will still come from agriculture, and agriculture will still be mostly a rural issue. So this production system needs to be healthy and thriving to feed a growing urban population. Without even mentioning about environmental services, these are the kind of services that cities will increasingly be wanting and needing, and most of it will come from the management of natural resources in rural areas. So there is a whole missing middle there, which has to go with migration going one way, remittances going the other way, small towns, value chains, connectivity and ICT landscapes, etc., that will make that urban and rural will have to work much more in an osmosis way rather than as two separate worlds. Now, if they can feed themselves nutritiously, one could say half of the problem is already solved. But then the question remains, who's going to feed the rest by 2050 when we will be 9 billion on the planet? And here the bets are out. Our bet is that global food security cannot be achieved without the contribution of the family farming sector. Now, there are some good news actually out there. Is that prices since 2008 have been signaling the revival of the private sector. You've seen prices have gone up, so many questions, of course, are there. I mean, are high prices good news or bad news for agriculture farming? But clearly, the private sector has reacted to this very fast. As you can see from the articles that I found, in 2008, The Economist was already saying this is the end of cheap food. 1 year later, in the Herald Tribune business page, I found this article that says now may be time to shift from gold. Platinum and agriculture are seen as the next area for demand. Can you imagine having agriculture next to gold and platinum as an investment opportunity? In my lifetime, I didn't think this would ever happen. And then 2 months ago, this article in the Financial Times saying commodity price revival draws back investors. 5 out of the 6 top commodities in terms of returns were agriculture commodities in the 2 digits. So, you know, one could say, okay, visibly the agriculture is going back into a business. Can this business be also of use for smallholder family farms? This is really the key question. And to what extent we may be confronted with the historic opportunities to use market solutions for poverty alleviation and to ensure global food security. This is really the key question now. And so this translates on how we will be able to do business at the bottom of the pyramid and what type of business that would be. In our capacity to attract the private sector, because we know that the private sector will have a big role to play in coming down the pyramids, something that they haven't done yet, because most of what they do is mostly to commercial farmers and industrial farmers, into an area where clearly they don't want to go much because the transaction costs are still too high. This is a very difficult market to go. This is a market of low cost, low profit, but potentially high volume if you find the right scale and entry points. So how can you finance, for instance, public goods through business plans, leverage value chain financing through private sector and financial inclusion, but mostly how to encourage responsible, so-called responsible agricultural investments and equitable land tenure arrangement with the private sector. So we shouldn't really be seeing the private sector as the enemy here. The private sector is part of the solution, but we need to work with them, making sure that this capacity that the private sector has to go deeper down the pyramid respects the local values.
You have about 30 seconds to sum up.
All right, so I will go very fast to tell you that the last door was about resilience, because the farmers, small farmers, are the manager of most of our natural resources, whether we like it or not. They're both the victims and the culprit of environmental management, and we know how difficult it is, because for poor people there is no long term if there is no short term. So you can dream about environmental management, but if you're poor, you're thinking about feeding yourself first before protecting the environment for the future. So unless you find some short-term solution, this will remain a big problem. And so my last slide is really about how to build resilience. And I will just go to the last bullets. We have to look at sustainable agriculture from a multiple benefit point of view. What does it mean, multiple benefit point of view? It means that agriculture is much, much, much more than the calories that it produces. As Petrini said this morning, agriculture is about social capital, it's about environment, it's about culture, it's about a style of living. And the issue is that the true value of agricultural products are not reflected in the market prices. This is what we call externalities. The cost, the differential cost, is actually absorbed by farmers, but the farmers are actually delivering a lot of public goods, except that those public goods are not valorized and they're not translated into prices. But this has a cost. And I think if we understand this cost and we understand the importance of social capital and biodiversity, this equals resilience. Because resilience is about diversifying risks, and diversity is a way of diversifying risk, whether it's in your own portfolio or whether it's through the food systems. Thank you very much.
The part of the world I live in India, and I work in India, Bangladesh, Nepal, that region. A family farmer means they have a small amount of land. So I'll try to take you through a kind of an idea which we have piloted 4 or 5 years back, which is called integrated farming system. And now we are trying it out in India, Bangladesh and Nepal with 8,000 farms. And the idea is basically like this. I'm not saying that this is the only method that should be followed by a family farm. These are some set of principles that can be followed to design a kind of farm, because we believe that each and every farm, the farm that I have, the farm that you have, are completely different. So there is no kind of a set of 2 + 2 = 4 kind of equation. So I'm just presenting some kind of principles on the basis of which a farmer, we are training the farmers how to design your own farm so that you get all your needs from your small piece of land. So the principle number 1 is to deal with the cropping sequence. Like you have to mix crops, you have to do intercropping and the crop rotations. Like if you have cereals or vegetables, then in the next season you should have pulses, and then you can have tuber crops. So there's a cycle, and there are some principles that which crop helps which crop, how to mix crops, mixing crops according to the length of the root and height. So you have to play with the kind of how can you mix different crops together. That is one principle. And the second principle is having a multi-story arrangement, because you have a very small amount of land, but it can always multiply your land horizontally, vertically. So in a pond you can extend a kind of trellis to grow food over there. You can use your trellis in that way, and you can also use your dikes, use your boundary of the farm to produce food. And of course, the most important thing is, to enhance the diversity of the farm. As I said, that there are multiple amount of resources, but in a very small amount. So a family farm should have a positive interaction between the animal system, the trees. The most important thing, because trees are the most efficient solar energy harvesting machine so far. So you have to have a kind of positive interaction between all those in a farm. So these are the basic 3 principles, and how it works. If this is the current situation, you have a rice field there, you have your house, and you may have animals. You are selling some paddy to the market, you are getting some rice, maybe some straw to feed your cow, and you are getting some meals. And a small change, if we introduce in the rice field, if we introduce a small pond, and maybe your rice yield will be less, but you will get vegetables, you will get fish, and in South Asia, the kind of rice, fish, duck, azolla cultivation together is a very common and popular one. So now you can see that with a very small change, you can make your system, you can make your energy flow, biomass flow from this, some of the examples, this is this particular thing, which is if you have a small pond in your vegetable garden, and if you raise some kind of meat-eating fish like catfish and other things, and you have a light trap there, so your light trap will attract insects, and that insects will become food for the fish. So in integrated farming system, we use anything that we use that should have multiple uses. So that is the basic principle. And if you allow your duck to go into the rice field, it will also fertilize, and it will also take out the pests as a food. You can have your chicken house or duck house on the pond, so that the duck shit and chicken shit helps to grow more zooplankton, and which can be work as food for your fish. So only thing is we have to be a little bit creative, and things are very simple, but it works. I mean, we are basically talking about three principles, which is enhancing diversity. Enhancing diversity is the key word for the integrated farms, so that your income is diversified, your farm output is diversified, time of harvest, you will get harvest throughout the year, it's not only one crop. And you also reduce risk, reduce health risk, reduce market dependency, and also improve health of the soil, health of the ecology and other things. And all the results you will get in this website. And the integrated farming system is, yes, it's a little bit complex, but I would say it's not very complicated.